It may be a little loud in here because I have the heat going on, but I won't know until I listen to the video, so there you go. We're going into Genesis chapter 4 right now, and in the last video we talked about Genesis chapter 3 and 4, but we really only stayed in 3. I didn't change the title. About making choices. Kind of dove into that, and with the understanding that when God planted Adam in the garden, that he made choices. When he was given the woman, he made choices. I really want to emphasize to those who consider me a teacher, a mentor, to my kids, my grandkids, my brothers and sisters on the African continent. My brothers and sisters here in America that may be listening, may or may not be listening. Just so you understand, this is my private Bible study. I'm making a decision to go from Genesis to Revelation and turning it into a commentary so that you can hear it from a 21st century language perspective. With that said, study to show yourself approved, but understanding that Adam made a choice, what I want everyone to understand is that your choices are the things that got you where you are. I have not made the smartest choices at all. At all. I've just done a lot of wrong to a lot of good people in my past. It is a distant past, but it happened. And I set the ball rolling for where I am in my life based upon my trustworthiness, my flawed decision making. And it's only by the grace and mercy of God that I'm in the position now where I can at least admit my wrongs because I couldn't see them at the time in all cases. Couldn't. I didn't know how to make better choices. Or I didn't understand how to make better choices. In theory, you know the answers. But when you're in the thick of things, you don't necessarily understand how to make the best choices. We're born with all knowledge, but we're not born with all understanding and all wisdom. It has to be lived out. If you do well in life, you surround yourself with well-meaning people who also see the best in you, and you see the best in them, and you work it out together. But in a lot of cases, at least in my case, I had a lot of well-meaning people on my side, and I didn't see it. And they didn't see, a lot of them didn't see me. It's tough to speak from all perspectives, but I'm doing the best I can to speak from multiple perspectives so that you will get the necessary lessons, not to make the mistakes I've had, and possibly repeat the successes that I had to help you get to a better place. one of the greatest things I've ever done was admit my faults and come to an understanding of what I can do better, at least in my children's generation. There are certain things that my kids, my children, my spiritual sons and daughters will have the opportunity to do that would be a little tougher for me to do. Not that it's impossible, but they have in reality they have more years to get things done. But at the age I'm at now, I have the benefit of looking back and seeing the mistakes and the successes. At the time of Adam, there was no looking back from a human perspective. He was the first man. At the time in the woman, there was no looking back. So the course of life began with them because there was a greater plan. We thank God for the greater plan. Stay with me, because I want you to see in the Old Testament the grace and mercy of God. The mercy is He didn't give us what we deserved. He gave us an opportunity and gives us opportunities if we're selflessly paying attention to make changes in our life, to confess the mistakes that we discover. How do we, now this is how I know that I've made a mistake. I don't always see it. I just don't see the fruit of what I think I should have. See, I trust the process more, God's process, the kingdom. I trust the process enough to know that when it's not working, it's not God and it's not somebody else. It's got to be, I've missed it somewhere. You know, why me? Why me? How come they? How come they? No, it's what I'm missing. Please stay with me. This is important before I even read the text. Because again, if you come out of Genesis with the right mindset, you can create anything that God places on your heart to create. But you can't come out blaming the world system, the people in the world. He's given us all power to create if we understand some principles that He's teaching here out of Genesis. I want you to catch on to them. The reason why Adam and the woman got locked out is because of their lust and their pride. We talked about that. Lust and pride. So, number one, kill your lust and your pride. Now, what does that look like? It really looks like that you're not striving for stuff, but you're focused on building your relationships. Why do I say that? Because Adam had the opportunity to listen to the relationships that he had, which was in God, the Father, the Creator, and his wife, the weaker vessel who was made to follow him and support him in the creation of what the Father had given Adam. Now, the challenge is, well, one challenge is we constantly have to defend the statement, weaker vessel. Okay, let's not call her the weaker vessel, but understand, as we said in the previous videos, she was pulled out of Adam, not the ground. Rib, we all know that. Rib, which is a support to the man who was pulled out the ground. God spoke to Adam. So when she came speaking into his life and he took her advice over God's advice, that was out of order. It's enticing to take the woman's advice because you don't want to lose the woman and you want to make her happy. The unfortunate truth, though, there are a lot of women that don't respect men and follow men because they measure them by the stuff that they have and other reasons. So we're out of order. So dealing with the pride and the lust will put us back in order to hear God's voice. That's the first thing I'm trying to get over to you. And I'm going deep to figure out how to explain it to you, to take Genesis 1 through 3 so that you can see it. I would like to offer proof in Genesis chapter 4. This is now when the woman is now called Eve. The mother of life. Now she's called Eve. Isha, whatever it was, I forgot what it was. The woman who's now called Eve, mother of life, which is interesting, because the mother of life, if you read into the book of Proverbs, is wisdom. Starts conceiving children and speaking. So I want you to hear this in Genesis chapter 4. And Adam, the first man, 121, knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Let me repeat part of that. This is Eve speaking. I have gotten a man from the Lord. Not a child, a man. Verse 2. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So there was Cain. I've gotten a man from the Lord, and his brother Abel, who was a keeper of the sheep. Cain was not a keeper of sheep. He was a tiller of the ground. So when Cain gave of his offering, now keep in mind, he's the man. She didn't say this about Abel. They're twins. She didn't say it about Abel, the second born. She said this about Cain. But when it came time for the offering, Cain brought of the fruit of the fruit of the ground as an offering, and Abel brought of the firstlings of his flock. Now, they're obviously not the same thing. Not to mention, he not only brought of the firstlings, he brought of the fat, which is closer to the offering. The firstlings that Abel brought was, follow me on this, was the seed of the animals. He gave of the best animals, babies. In other words, the ones that once they grow, they're gonna give the best fruit. They're gonna give the best babies. You know, he gave of his best. Cain gave of his fruit. He didn't give of his best. He gave of his fruit. Now, in theology, in the Christian world, we talk about this all the time. But I want you to catch this. Well, and I don't even want to frame it by you catching this. I want to explain this because this has happened in my life. I have been Cain and I've been Abel. Abel is better. I have given of the fruit of my life at times and didn't give of the seed of my life. And I've given of the seed of my life and the fat of my life at times. What's the difference? The difference is giving of your fruit is not a sacrifice. It's just an offering. It shows no reliance on the one that is greater than you. It's an offering. Offerings are great. And as we've read into the book of Leviticus and Numbers and that sort of thing, we understand that the offering goes to the priest and that the offerings also go to the general congregation. Offerings have a purpose. But to give of your firstlings and to put them on the altar means that you're wholly dependent upon God to provide for you. Say it a different way. To get rid of the lust and the pride in your life, there needs to be a heart of intentionality of always giving of your best, not of your excess. Your best. If you have a heart of living a fasted life of giving of your best, then you have a better shot of becoming successful at whatever God calls you to do. My daughter said, Dad, you have to keep it basic. I'm trying to keep it as basic as possible. So in other words, don't take a job and give of your talent, but don't give of your best. Don't go to school and do I'm going to do what it takes just to get by thing. Give of your best. Don't go into a business arrangement with partners with just an offering. Give of your best. So what does that look like? One is self-focused and one is soul-focused. Each and every one of us is an example of the kingdom we come from. And each and one of our spirits can be seen that's being shown here can be seen not only by God the Father, but by those who are following our example. Spiritually, people can tell if you're just giving up your fruit or if you're giving up your best. Let me close with this. I wanted to go back to Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, and talk about the words that Eve spoke over Cain. She was excited about receiving a man from Cain, a man from God. The challenge with that is that Cain was not a man. He was a child. He was a son. Now, that word 376 is also used for husband. Great one. I'm not saying he wasn't a boy, of the male persuasion. I'm just saying I think Eve had it wrong in her intentionality. I think sometimes we get it wrong in our expectations, sometimes, of what we believe things should be. I know I have. I get into relationships with people and I think it should go one way and it goes nowhere close to that. I'm thinking I'm respected and I'm looked down upon. And then I'm wondering why. And then I have to look at myself and how I presented myself. Because I can't blame the people. I have to take personal responsibility. Hear me on this. I'm really trying to connect with you on this. I have to take personal responsibility for how people perceive me. Now, you may not want to hear that. But when God has blessed you with talent, that's not yours. It's His talent. Our job is to give of ourselves transparently, openly, and honestly, with prudence, with wisdom, of course. And we could talk about that in later places. But the idea is that we walk into everything with the right expectations, with the right intentionality, and we're focused not on getting rich, we're focused in on the souls that God has called us to. And that's the point, the biggest point of all, is not only what are you called to be, but what are you called to do, and what is your heart condition behind doing what it is that you're called to do? I'm hoping to be able to connect the dots a little bit more into chapter 4 and as we move on through Genesis as to the right heart condition coming out of Genesis into creating, into being the creator that God has called you to be. It is so important that you have the right heart condition. Thank you for taking the journey with me. This has gone too long. God bless you. If you like these videos, please like and share them with others. And we'll talk to you soon.